Aaron Boone. It's a Yankee lineup today with a day game after a night game here in the Grapefruit League that features, Jessica, a lot of young Yankee talent.
A lot of young Yankee talent. You're not going to see the big, huge names that you've seen coming into the season in Stanton and Judge, but I'll tell you what, these are some young players to look out for. Tyler Wade, very athletic, dynamic player that's going to see a lot of time at second base. And right after him is the trade acquisition of Brandon Drury, who's now back to his regular position at third base. They expect his numbers to improve now that he's in his comfortable position.
And this group of Yankees taking swings against a familiar arm and face for Yankee fans. A former Yankee World Series star, Phil Hughes, on the mound, attempting his completion of comeback from thoracic outlet surgery. Initially that happened back in 2016. He re-experienced symptoms from that again last year and was shut down. And Phil is trying to stretch himself out to be ready to rejoin the rotation at some point, perhaps as early as the end of April. Hughes going to work against Jacoby Ellsbury to lead things off for the Yankees on this Grapefruit League afternoon, and we are underway in Fort Myers. Ellsbury, Torreyes, and Wade for New York. And you know, we talk about the fact that it's a lot of young guys in Aaron Boone's lineup today. And Alex, you can speak to this better than anybody. The veterans, day game after a night game with a 2-hour bus ride, a lot of them say, yeah, that's okay, I'll sit this one out.
You start lobbying not to come on this trip probably in the middle of January.
You get the schedule and you're.
So Ellsbury among the few seasoned veterans, the 2011 All-Star, leading things off and trying to bounce back from a couple of injury-marred years to reestablish his star in the Bronx. 2 balls and a strike from Phil Hughes to start out the day. To 3-1 now. For Phil Hughes, his last start came on the 17th. And though nobody is overly concerned with results, the 9 runs in 3 1/3 does kind of catch your eye, as he's now full to Jacoby Ellsbury. We talk about that 2009 World Series title, Alex, and Phil Hughes played a major part in that World Championship as well.
He sure did. He moved to the bullpen and was just a really important cog to that championship team. He's your classic 4-pitch pitcher: fastball, curveball, slider, change. His best 2 pitches are the fastball and the overhand curveball.
Well, like many veteran starters, that rotation of pitches has refined itself over the years as he loses Ellsbury as his first assignment today.
Yeah, guys, when I talked to him yesterday, Phil said that he's now going through that transition with his velocity going down, trying to figure out how to make the pitches work and sort of relenting and understanding he's never going to get back to being that guy through 94, 95 miles per hour consistently.
Fewer 4-seamers in the repertoire these days, focusing more on the sinker and changeup. And now he's focusing on a different hitter with a runner aboard. This is Ronald Torreyes, the shortstop, with Ellsbury on base.
He's made several adjustments after talking to him over the last day or two. He's moved himself over to the first base side on the rubber, which is trying to command glove side. So his goal is to spot outside corner to right-handed hitters, inside corner to left-handed hitters.
Torreyes grounds it to third base. Escobar has to back up on it to Ibar for 1. Relays not in time to double off Torreyes.
And third, the second baseman, number 39, Tyler Wade.
One on, one away as Tyler Wade steps in here in the first. So you talk to your old teammate before the game, who is now playing for the Minnesota Twins, of course. But a lot of folks still remember you guys as mates and still look at you, Alex, and say, wait a minute, didn't I see you in Yankee camp in uniform not too long ago? You still have a role with the team.
Yeah, you know, Matt, I've been there since 2004, and as my second year as special advisor to Hal Steinbrenner and Brian Cashman. And you know, my role is interesting. As a big brother mentor role to a lot of the young players here with the Yankees. Gary Sanchez, for one, I took special interest last year in spending some time and trying to mentor him a little bit through some of my experiences, the ups, the downs. And my role will be exactly the same this year. So, you know, my job as I work here for ESPN is to, you know, tell you the what and the why. Same thing with Jessica. And my job is to do it objectively and fairly.
What if we're in Houston doing a Rangers-Astros game and Hal calls and says, I need you to talk to Gary Sanchez today?
Anytime Hal calls, I'm available 24/7.
Counts a ball and a strike to Tyler Wade. And he jerks that one just foul. Wade, one of the young Yankees who, by the way, last year the storyline around this team was the baby Bombers. They got a little longer in the tooth in the offseason. Bringing in veteran talent, bringing in Giancarlo Stanton, that was the move that stopped the presses and grabbed the headlines, but there have been others since. Neil Walker brought aboard, Brandon Drury, who's in the lineup today. The baby Bombers theme might not apply as much this year as it did the last couple.
They have a great combination of talent, young and experienced. And I'll tell you, bringing in a guy like Stanton for 1 year, first time in 20 years probably that they were David and not Goliath. Well, they gave that up. They're right back to being Goliath with inheriting the largest contract in Major League Baseball history.
It is one of the storylines around the 2018 Yankees that folks are most interested in. Just what Stanton, Judge, and Sanchez can accomplish as a trio. Wade continues to fight off Phil Hughes. Yes, it was a busy and expensive offseason in the Bronx. Yankees doing everything they can to load up what Aaron Boone has to work with. Stanton and Drury we talked about. We talked about Walker, and don't sleep on re-signing CC Sabathia.
Yeah.
To bring him back and anchor the staff.
Yeah, and that's been huge. And I think that's where a lot of eyeballs are going to go. You know how solid this bullpen is. I mean, the lineup is ridiculous, and even their bench. But when you look at their starting pitching, I feel like that's where some of the bigger question marks come from. And getting CC Sabathia and the consistency they've had from him the last few years. A veteran, not similar to Phil Hughes in the results, but in someone who, with diminished velocity and being able to change his repertoire, finding success with that.
Runner goes as Wade fouls it away again. Torreyes goes back to first, and it stays 3-2.
And CC does a lot with what Andy Pettit used to do for the young pitchers. He's a presence. He's a positive guy. He's a guy that's likable by everyone. And every once in a while he speaks up. And I'll tell you, with his newfound cutter, I would not be surprised if CC can pitch another three or 4 years.
Still 3 balls and 2 strikes to the second baseman, Tyler Wade. Let's see if Torreyes runs again with a full count pitch.
He should be.
And there he goes. And Wade sends a fly ball into shallow right. Wind is blowing in today as Jack Cave is under it to make the catch. And there are 2 gone. You know, we talk about the Yankee rotation, guys, and it was a good one last year. Their starters had the second lowest ERA in the American League last season, and it is the same group returning after the trade that brought Sonny Gray from Oakland. Severino, Tanaka, Sabathia, and Gray. Outside the Astros and the Indians, I dare you to find a better 4 in the American League than what the Yankees will bring to opening day. And we'll see Jordan Montgomery this afternoon. So with 2 gone now, here is Brandon Drury, one of the offseason imports, starting at third base today, a position he manned only once as a Diamondback last year. Torreyes with a big lead off first, and Drury falls behind 0-2.
And Drury has talked about such the comfort of getting back to third base, his position. And it's such a difference when you're pulled into a position. And when you look at him, and you look at his build and just his talents, I mean, he is a third baseman. And even though obviously Jake Lamb and everything that he brought with the Diamondbacks, it was clear why they moved him to second base. But I think that's where you also see the offensive production that Drury is going to bring this season now that he's back in the position he was always meant to be.
Came to the Yankees in that 3-team deal that sent Steven Souza Jr. to Arizona. And he goes down on 3 pitches. Nothing despite the leadoff walk against Phil Hughes. A half-inning gun. Myers after a scoreless start to the ball game. Nothing in the top of the first against Phil Hughes. Back with Alex Rodriguez and Jessica Mendoza, Matt Vasgersian. And we take a look at Paul Molitor's Minnesota Twins lineup this afternoon. It strikes you that they lead things off with 4 straight switch hitters. That doesn't happen often in a regular big league game. We'll talk about that. It also strikes you that all 3 of the guys vying to play shortstop in the absence of Jorge Polanco are all leading off today for Minnesota, and some young Twins rounding out the lineup for their Hall of Fame manager. As mentioned, it is Jordan Montgomery on the mound for the Yankees to start this one, coming off a 9-7 rookie campaign in which he made 29 starts to the tune of a sub-4 ERA, penciled in as the number 5 starter in the Yankees opening day rotation. Adrianza, Ibar, and Escobar lead things off for the Twins this afternoon as Jordan Montgomery's 5th spring start is underway.
I remember his arm out of South Carolina, and you're going to see an excellent down angle with the fastball. He's got the 4 and the 2 seam, but his best pitch is his curveball.
And there's a base hit into left. Leadoff hitter aboard as we check in the studio with John Brickley.
Matty, Jake Arrieta, the big offseason gem for the Phillies. Back-to-back strikeouts to begin his outing against the Tigers. Coming with that 3-year, $75 million deal for a Phillies team that many feel can compete for that second wild card spot in the National League this year. Able to deal early on, but then he would find trouble after back-to-back strikeouts, facing off with Miguel Cabrera and Miggy. Going opposite way, a great sign for the Tigers slugger, for a Tigers team, Maggie, looking to rebuild after a 64-win season.
Yeah, John, the Tigers with a lot of work to do. The Phillies have apparently done that work. They think they're postseason relevant after adding guys like Carlos Santana and Jake Arrieta. We'll get into a lot of that during our game here this afternoon. Adrianza aboard with Eric Ibar digging in now for the Twins. It has been such a strange offseason with so many high-profile players without a chair until very recently. Alex Cobb among the most recent to get work, signing his deal with the Baltimore Orioles. Lance Lynn, a 1-year deal to come here to the Twins. Even Jake Arrieta.
Yeah.
I mean, who'd have thought a guy just a couple years removed from a historic season.
It'd be March before he'd sign.
March for Jake Arrieta to land in Philadelphia.
I think what's interesting, obviously there's an entire conversation in and around where the market is in free agency, and this offseason showing just record breaking as far as how many guys signed so late. But Jake ultimately, I think, ending up in the right spot, just how long it took for him to get there.
Well, there are still talented players, accomplished major league veterans who are without work. This group is interesting when you consider Greg Holland and Mark Reynolds coming off a postseason roster in Denver, unemployed for the moment. I mean, Mark Reynolds, who hit 30 home runs last year, is this going to be a Dave Kingman exit? 3 straight years of 30 and 100 and then shutting it down. I can't imagine his not playing this year. There's a ground ball chance at third. Drury to Wade, and the turn doubles him off.
Yeah, and you mentioned Greg Holland. Look, that to me is a really interesting name, because when he signed with the Rockies last year, he was a difference maker for that bullpen, especially in that first half of the season. It seemed like the Rockies and Holland were getting close to a deal, and then it didn't happen, and now he's sitting out. And you wonder if his best strategy at this point might be wait for a big injury to develop with some team, and maybe some team becomes desperate to sign him.
Here's Eduardo Escobar now with 2 gone.
Yeah, that's the one that surprises me the most, just because it is the bullpen guys that have gotten the most success and the most need that's been out there. It's been the bigger bats, the home run hitters that strike out a lot, that you're seeing just a little bit of hesitancy for teams to jump on.
Yeah, we visited with Paul Molitor before this one, and we talked about how the Twins kind of retooled over the winter. And we asked him if bullpen was a priority, because on paper it would appear that to be the case. They signed some veteran arms to shore up the bullpen last year. He said that wasn't their goal, but that's what the market led to. As Escobar swings and misses, nothing comes of the leadoff single. We continue from St. Myers, an inning into a scoreless tie. It's back. Go to ESPN.com/fantasy-baseball or download the ESPN Fantasy app to sign up, draft, and follow your team or teams from anywhere. And if you're interested in adding Logan Morris into your fantasy league team, he would be most appreciative. Logan, are you a fantasy league guy?
Not in baseball, guys. Kind of busy, but I do like some fantasy football.
Logan Morrison kind enough to wear Mike for us this inning as Phil Hughes goes back to work on Austin, Romine, and McKinney. Hey, Logan, why are you wearing number 99 this year, by the way? Is that your homage to the Charlie Sheen character in Major League?
You know it, baby. Wild Thing.
All right.
No, basically, my choices were 40, 68, or 00, and 99. So I was like, okay, last guy in camp, I'll take 99.
There's a shot up the middle. Granite retreating on it to make the catch. So tell us about camp, because this being your first go-around with the Twins, you come aboard after a monster year. How are things going for you this year?
I had Fielding talking to me right there, so.
Tell him to save it for a minute. We're trying to talk to you.
Sorry. How is camp this year? Is that what the question was?
Yeah.
Camp's been great, man. These guys have been awesome, very welcoming. You know, I think we're all excited here about the expectations of the season, and just looking forward to get it going.
One gone now for Austin Romine.
Who have been the guys, Logan, that you've kind of, I guess, navigated towards? I know that you've been kind of an influence in giving advice to some of the other hitters, but have there been certain swings or even certain other hitters that you've kind of gotten in the cage with a little bit?
You know, as far as that goes, not so much right now, but.
Well, get there. You got time. You're good.
Thanks, Matty.
Does that bug you at all?
No, you're good.
Okay.
So the question was swings. You know, obviously getting to play with Joe Mauer every day is going to be exciting, and just looking forward to, you know, getting to know him, watch him work. He's a potential Hall of Famer, if not a Hall of Famer. So, and then Brian Dozier, man, that guy's consistent as they come. So
I'm
excited.
Out of breath right now?
Yeah. It's it's early.
There's Billy McKinney now.
It's hard to talk and run at the same time.
I will give you that.
I'm hoping that I don't hit a triple today. You guys would be making fun of me a lot more.
Two gone, bases empty for Billy McKinney, the former first rounder, property of the Oakland A's.
Hey, Logan, this time of the year here, how's your swing feeling? How does your body feel? Are you pretty optimistic about this year?
Yeah, for sure. You know, the swing isn't where I want it to be. Getting front foot heavy, need to stay back a little more, getting jumpy, anxiety, all that stuff. Get it out of the way, and I think the more I see live pitching, the better I'll become. But geez, pretty good.
Into deep right field, and gone for Billy McKinney.
And there's a very nice swing, a little hanging slider, 83 miles an hour, and it sounded great off the bat.
Yeah, so like that swing, Alex, that's what I want. Staying behind it.
You'll take 35 of those, won't you?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Well, Logan knew it right off as soon as that ball made contact.
Here is a former Twin now, Shane Robinson, after the McKinney home run, starts the scoring this afternoon. Logan, you're going to bat second in the next half inning.
Yes.
Can you just take a huge hack just try to go bridge on the first thing you see for us, because that would be awesome.
I can do that for you.
See, this is what we're talking
really
about here.
I'm not guaranteeing results, but I can swing hard. I know I can do that.
2 balls and a strike to count to Robinson. You know, back to what Alex was talking about, Logan, regarding what your swing is feeling like right now. I mean, you had the wrist procedure right last year.
Yeah.
So were you able to start your program on time after that, or did you have to wait?
So that would have been going into the off season of last year. So 16, I had the surgery, and then 17 played last year. Started a little bit later, still every other day kind of thing, and started spring training. But spring training was so long last year with the World Baseball Classic, I was up to full strength and ready to go by the end of it.
And a full count now, 3 balls and 2 strikes to Shane Robinson. Robinson, as we mentioned, a former Twin himself. In fact, became a Paul Molitor favorite during his brief tenure in Minnesota.
Sugar Shane, as I like to call him. Because he's
Sugar
got a
Shane
sweet
has a
swing.
base hit.
Swing it, Sugar.
The designated hitter, number 12, Jace Peterson.
You doing all right? I'm mic'd up. You want to say hi to your mom? Hey, how's it going? Say hi, Mom. I love you. You gotta say hi to your mom. I want to say hi to my mom right now, too. Hi, Diane. She'd probably get mad at me if I didn't, so.
Here's the DH, Jace Peterson, now after the homer and 2-out single.
Logan, who are some of the best guys to get down to first base and you just can't, you're like, all right, this is going to be a fun conversation.
Alex was a great one for me. I don't know if Alex remembers that one. We're not going to talk about it on air, but.
I didn't get over there very much in my last year.
2 years. I was in Seattle when you were having that great year.
I feel like there's a story here.
Yeah, it's a good one. You can tell Jessica later. We had that charity
event. Do it on TV. Let it rip.
Oh, he's giving you the green light.
Well, Alex has an illustrious career on and off the field. I'll just say that. And,
okay, maybe save that
one. He was trying to help you.
I was trying to keep it secret.
This seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah. Yep. But actually, seriously, congratulations on the job. I think you'll be fine. You look great on TV, and you talk very nice, well, in both English and Spanish. So you'll be right where you need to be.
I'm made more for radio, but thank you, Logan.
Shoot, my wife wishes I looked like you.
Ball and a strike to count to Jace Peterson.
I got you.
Lomo unassisted.
Pine tar, baby. Yeah.
He's going to be out of breath now.
Still mic'd and batting second as we go to the bottom of the inning. Logan Morrison kind enough to visit with us live here in the Grapefruit League.
You know, as far as that goes, not so much right now, but thanks, Matty. Appreciate it. No, you're good.
Robbie Grossman leads things off in the Twins half of the second, and on the first pitch sends a fly ball to Shane Robinson for the first down, and Logan Morrison still mic'd, digging in and promising a big hack here in his first swing.
Let's make sure it's over the plate first. Timmy, Austin, how we doing, boys? I'm mic'd up. Tell your moms hello. Say hi, moms. I think I just backswinged and knocked it out too. I know, what are they thinking?
Yeah.
I tried, guys.
Hey, Logan, tell Timmy and Austin we say hello over there, would you?
It's a fly ball out to right for Shane Robinson. Hey, Logan, can we ask you about facing the shift as you did there? I mean, is that the casual fan looks at that and says, wow, how come they don't just shorten up and punch it the other way? It's a little harder to do than what meets the eye, is it not? I think we lost him. I think on the huge hack that he promised and delivered on, he lost the mic or the earpiece or both.
Slider.
Yeah, because we can still hear
Oh,
him.
he lost the earpiece, yeah. Here's Mitch Garver now after a couple of fly ball outs against Jordan Montgomery. Well, that was fun, and we appreciate Logan for wearing the mic for us today.
That was really cool. I mean, and honestly, the personality of Logan to be able to be talking to the guys the way he was.
I think we have. This was the swing that cost us a mic pack. Boom.
He said it too.
It was worth it. Garver trying to protect behind 0-2 now. Mitch Garver, one of the young Twins that is in line for perhaps a lot of playing time, pending a catching platoon plan with Jason Castro, left-handed hitting catcher. Garver, the Twins minor league player of the year in 2017 after an impressive year at AAA. At a .928 OPS at the AAA level last year, included 17 home runs. And again, might not only see time at catcher, but he can play corner outfield. He might DH this year. We'll talk about the Twins moving forward a little bit later on in the telecast today, because there's still so much in flux depending on who is and isn't available on opening day. And again, we'll have that discussion a little bit later on. It's certainly foremost on Paul Molitor's mind. Hey, I think Logan can hear us again down in the Twins dugout. Lomo, you got us?
Yeah, I was warming up for my swing from the heels swing, and the backswing might have knocked the mic out. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It was worth it for us. We appreciate you wearing the mic.
I tried on the first one.
Garver sends a fly ball into left. Billy McKinney's got it. Thanks again to Logan Morrison for his help on the broadcast. Nothing in the second. Moving on to the third in a 1-0 Yankee lead. Again with Buster Olney.
So I'm here with Brian Dozier, the Minnesota Twins. You see your teammate Logan Morrison wearing a microphone. You did that earlier in spring training. What's that like?
It was actually pretty, I think for the first couple of bats, the hitting part of it with Dan Gladden in my ear, what's coming, all that kind of stuff. But
now, I talked to Eduardo Escobar, your teammate, about the wild card game last year, and he said it was like a World Series for us. He talked about how much fun he had. What do you remember about that game?
Well, this year in the big leagues, and it really was. I think for me, you always hear all hands on deck and all this kind of stuff about the process of going into the postseason game and the wild game. It was a totally different game, totally different atmosphere. It keeps you hungry though, playing the game, I can tell you that.
What's it been like for you to see all the moves the Twins have made during the course of this offseason?
It's been super exciting. I know the way the free agent market kind of was a little slow per se, but I think we took advantage of getting a few guys in here. I know a lot of them are on one-year deals, but it really excites us. We knew coming into the year we have a really good team, but adding some of the veteran guys that we did in our bullpen to anchor down the back end, as well as some guys on the front end with the starting staff, we needed that, and that might put us over the hump.
You guys exploded in the second half offensively last year. What was different first half to second half?
Well, I think just the aspect of realizing you're a pretty good team. 16 being the worst team in baseball, and then what to expect going into 17 last year. And then after a couple of months progressed, and you saw us putting up pretty good numbers 1 through 9, and I think everyone finally bought in around the All-Star break that, hey, we're pretty good. And then you look up and we're in the wild card hunt, and obviously Indians ran away with the division, but we still got a chance to get in the postseason. That's what you asked for.
All right, let's go back to that wild card game last year. Here's your home run that you hit to open the game. What do you remember?
Well, we knew that we needed to get off to a good start. Obviously, playing in New York, playing against a guy. Yeah, look at all my boys in there playing against a guy like Severino, who had a heck of a year last year. But being a young guy, very young guy, and trying to rattle him early, I think we did our job early on of getting him out of the game. I think he ended up throwing just a third of an inning or whatever. Obviously, the end result didn't go the way we planned, but it's a learning experience for a lot of guys in here, and I think we learned a lot.
Now, Paul Molitor told us just a little while ago that he felt like you guys lost that game. He didn't feel like the moment was too big for the team, that the players responded well to it.
We really did, and going into it, that's what we had a talk yesterday, you and I did, that we didn't get caught up in a lot of things throughout the course of the year. That I think it might have been a testament that we weren't supposed to be that good, and you have a little chip on your shoulder and you just keep playing. But once the postseason hit, it was the same mentality that, hey, a lot of people, if not the majority of people, didn't think we were going to be here. So we really have nothing to lose. Let's just go out and maintain that aggressive approach that we've had all season. And but it was a lot of fun, though. But to say the least, we weren't satisfied by any means.
Brian Dozier doing a great job of doing this interview while his teammates are trying to distract him. Thanks for doing this, Brian.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Buster.
Ronald Torreyes lines to the opposite field for the second out behind Phil Hughes in this one. A 1-0 lead continues for the Yankees. You know, Brian Dozier, and it strikes you as you hear him talk, he's so calm and collected, and if anybody can best personify how the Twins turned themselves around last year, it's Brian Dozier, who, while good before August, kicked into a different gear starting about August 1st, as he did, by the way, back in 2016 as well.
It seems to be a reoccurring theme with Brian Dozier, where he kind of gets off to these slower starts and then just explodes after the All-Star break. But he really, you're right, led the way. This entire team had huge offensive numbers, but Dozier was the one that kind of got them out of this, especially when they started trading away players. It looked like the season was over, and Dozier was a part of them just rallying the troops, saying, hey, our front office might look like they're giving up, but we aren't going to give up. Help get this team into the postseason.
I know they didn't win the game in the wild card last year, but there's a great residual that comes with it, and they're looking to get back there. And there's a big difference between thinking you can win in October and knowing you can win in October.
Well, how well they played. Dozier alluded to that with Buster right there. I mean, they came out against Luis Severino, you know, some of the best stuff in the game that you're going to see. And granted, obviously, he struggled that game, but they came in with his home run to lead it, to knock out Severino in that game in New York. And how quiet. I was there at the game, and it was unbelievable how Yankee Stadium was silenced, at least for the top half of the inning, when they scored those 3 runs. And that's not easy to do with a young group of guys, but they've got good leadership in Brian Dozier and Joe Mauer.
On the ground is second. Ibar with a nice play to his left to take care of the speedy Wade and make for the first 1-2-3 inning of the afternoon behind Phil Hughes. Well, Aaron Boone was with you in that Sunday night booth for the telecast of the AL wildcard game last year. From the booth to the field, a 12-year major league career, turned ESPN analyst for 8 seasons here in this broadcast booth. And then in December of 2017, after 7 official interviews, it was Aaron Boone named 33rd manager in Yankee franchise history. And we are thrilled to have former ESPN analyst Aaron Boone on with us this afternoon. Booney, can you hear us?
I can. How are you?
We're doing great. You know, hey, look, as much as a lot of us are going to miss you on TV every Sunday night, you are on to bigger and better things. Tell us about camp and tell us about where you are right now with these Yankees.
Camp has been really good. You know, we've been pretty fortunate that we've kind of stayed away from the injury bug, and we feel like we're getting guys built up in the right way. Ellsbury getting back today. He's the one guy that got beat up a little bit, and then Frazier is dealing with the concussion. But for the most part, we've been able to stay pretty healthy, and we feel like our guys are in a good place with a week to go.
Aaron, we talked a little bit about Stanton and Judge and how they're both very similar. They do have some differences as well. Can you describe how those two are different?
They really are. You know, I mean, Judge is Aaron for being so big. I think he's very much in tune with his swing mechanics and what he's trying to do up at the plate. And for being such a big guy, I'm surprised at what a good high ball hitter he is. He really is just able to catch the ball deep in the zone, and still, like last night, he hit a ball out of sight to left center on a pitch that he kind of catches deep. He really creates space for him. And then Stanton, you know, he's kind of just got that superhero thing. He's so short and quick to the ball, almost like cracking that towel, and just, I mean, the stupid power to all fields. But both guys, obviously, the tremendous power, but they go about it a little differently.
Well, Booney, some of the guys that you brought with you today, younger and newer too, and Brandon Drury, Tyler Wade, a couple that I know you've been excited and impressed by. What have you seen specifically with those two?
Two really good athletes, especially in the case of Tyler Wade. He's kind of done something every day, it seems like, that's pretty special on the field, whether it's a defensive play, running the bases. He's hit a lot of extra base hits, and the speed is real, and we think he brings a really nice element to our club.
Jack Cave with a bouncer up over the middle, and that's the first out for Jordan Montgomery in the third.
And then Brandon Drury, we get a guy that's a couple years into the league, but is just 25 years old. So it kind of keeps with the theme of us staying young. We feel like even though he's gotten off to a nice start in his career with the Diamondbacks, we really feel like there's a lot more in there. And we feel like him going to his natural position of third base, he's been playing a lot of second over in Arizona. We feel like there's a chance for him to take off even more and be a real big-time contributor for us this year.
Hey, Booney, I know the grapefruit's different. You guys have had a very good spring, and you stayed healthy, like you mentioned. The pressure cooker of New York City, once you get up to New York, obviously the fans are expecting really big things this year. How do you think it will differ? Are you ready for that?
I know what I signed up for. We know what we signed up for, I guess, in a lot of the cases. And, I would say the one thing about this job is you're kind of consumed with it. So not to say you don't have time to get caught up in all those expectations or what's going on around you, but there's so much to do in the course of the day. There's so many things that I want to touch in the course of the day that, expectations, you understand that they're real, and that goes with being a New York Yankee. And I think it certainly beats the alternative, but there's so much to do on a daily basis that, that's just, at the end of the day, that all that stuff is outside noise that you've got to kind of wade through and do what you think's best.
See, this is what always happens. We get the skipper, we get a 1-2-3 inning.
I was about to give him some smack, too.
Booney, can you hang out for another half inning? That's a horrible thing to drop on you without asking you in advance. Can you do it?
I'd be happy to.
Oh, you're the best. Thanks. They want you to take us to break.
And we'll head to the bottom of the third here in Fort Myers. 1-0 Stripers.
Yankees at 1 Eastern over on ESPN. You can see it on ESPN app if you're at work. And though Aaron Boone is at work managing the Yankees this afternoon, he's kind enough to take some time with us on the telecast as Brandon Drury leads things off in the fourth. Drury, Austin, and Romine. And Booney, I want to ask you about one guy in particular before we get to some other stuff. Billy McKinney goes deep today. He's hit 5 spring home runs. What do you tell a young player for whom the deck seems to be stacked with veteran competition all around him?
Yeah. It's one of those difficult parts of the job, I guess you'd say, and having to tell a lot of guys that have performed, a lot of guys that are knocking on the door that, it's not their time. And had to have that conversation with Billy the other day. I think the one thing he's come in here, you got to look at the power. Even when over the last couple weeks he hasn't swung the bat quite as well as he was early, he does so many things well on the field, from running the bases to the defensive element to just the compete in the box, the ability to have a good at bat. So those are difficult conversations, but you just gotta. Oh, we're all right. You just gotta tell them to keep plugging away and know that their one thing from happening from getting an opportunity is he took that down and in slider and rode it out of here. He's got that lefty. You miss down and in, and he's pretty good at dropping the head with some real power out of there. But he continues to impress. He's got our attention, and if something comes up, he's a guy that would be an option for us pretty quickly.
Well, Booney, one of the things that you've always done well is imitate other players, hitters. We've had some fun on Sunday Night Baseball of you taking batters and imitating them. Actually, Alex Rodriguez to my right. I think you had a chance at him, didn't you? Do you remember this?
Yeah, I've had a chance at him.
let's take a look.
Vintage boondoggle.
Vintage boondoggle.
Oh, we got to check out. Literally from managers. All various players, generations.
And as Drury's rung up, we'll take you back in time. This is a good one, Booney.
Yes.
The only problem is I couldn't hit like him. I could do all the getting into the box like him and take the pitch like him.
Look at his face.
Booney, your swing looked much better than mine.
You know what? They let me do it with a wiffle ball bat, and you know I got pretty good bat speed with that light blue thing right there.
The light blue wiffle ball bat.
Yeah, I can really get it through the zone with that thing.
Who could you imitate on this lineup, or lineup that you'll have?
I don't know.
Come on, you've been watching swings.
I'm too busy with other things. but actually, a few of the guys have asked me to do Alex. You know, they're like, hey, a couple of them have seen it, so they want to see the Alex. I haven't given it to them yet. We'll save it for a rainy day.
That's tremendous.
Hey, how's the booth going? How's the first day together?
I got to tell you, I am happy to be here with Matt and Jessica. They are absolutely carrying me.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for Alex? Booney?
Yeah, give me some.
Well, don't talk too much. Let the game come to you and tell us what you see. You're up there because you're really good at seeing this game, and we all want to hear what you have to say in certain situations.
Well, that's great. I'm 0 for 3.
It's a long season. That's a small sample size, Alex. 0 for 3 is small sample size. You got plenty of time.
Hey, Booney, you're a guy that's going to hit the. Are you going to be a city guy? Are you going to go out to New Jersey? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking I'm starting in the city, and then when the family gets out, we're gonna head to Westchester or Connecticut, maybe.
It's a great call.
Yeah.
Tyler Austin serves a base hit the other way. The Yankees have a one-out base runner here in the 4th. Hey, Booney, I want to ask you about rounding out your coaching staff, because that was one of the big questions many of us had after the announcement that you'd gotten the job. You keep Larry Rothschild there, and for obvious reasons, he's got a lot of skin in the game and is a wealth of knowledge, but you bring in some guys you've known for a long time, like Josh Bard, former teammate, Phil Nevin, who you've known since you were a kid. Tell us about those decisions to round out your staff.
Yeah, Josh Bard's been a guy I played with in Cleveland in 05, and you know, I've just continued a relationship over the years, and just a guy in this game that I respect from just a wealth of knowledge. Like he really understands, you know, the hitting, the pitching, the defensive side of things, plus the analytical world he's very steeped in. He was a big part of the Dodgers and their game planning. And then Phil, who's managed in AAA, obviously a tremendous player in his career, coached last year at third base, so just a guy that I think, you know, balances out our staff really good. And then I got a chance to interview Reggie Willits, who now is our first base coach, and Carlos Mendoza, who's our infield coach, both guys from within the organization that blew me away in the first 15 minutes of getting to speak with them, and I think they're going to be real impactful. And then Marcus Timms and PJ Pelletier as our hitting coaches have really been tremendous. And then we got to bring Mike Harkey back in the bullpen, who was actually one of my first calls, because I knew Roth was coming back. And then when I got the job, you know, I knew Hark had been here for a while. One of the first calls I make was to say, hey, I'm hoping you're willing to come back. He was on board, and obviously he's a tremendous asset to our pen, which is pretty good down there.
Hey, Booney, there's been a lot of rumblings about the lineup, specifically with the three-headed monster with Sanchez, Stanton, and Judge. Any thoughts about splitting them or putting them together?
Right now, I'm leaning towards splitting them, but I'll take your guys' input. I like to get a lot of input on these things, so if you guys have an opinion on it one way or the other, my plan right now is to split them up, especially against right-handed pitching. There may be a time when it's a lefty going that we may hit them all three in a row, but that also depends on the bullpen, you know, what we think from a matchup standpoint. If there's a nasty righty that may match up with those guys that we want to split them, but we'll see. Right now I'm leaning towards definitely splitting them.
Well, I think that puts a little bit on Greg Bird in the season that he has, and ideally we're putting up a lineup right now, projected lineup. See that?
Yeah.
How does that look?
Is that pretty close?
I think that's I think that's something that'll work against a right-handed lineup. And then obviously we'll work in Neil Walker as well, and kind of him and Wade. And I think Wade gives us an option if we want to give Drury a day off at third against, say, a tough righty, we can move Wader over to third base and play Walker at second. So I feel like we have some flexibility between Wade and Walker, and their skill sets kind of complementing each other. But I like what you guys have up there. I think there's a good chance we'll see that lineup at some point this year, and maybe often.
Booney, one part of your job that you don't have any experience in is pitching changes, and it's difficult in spring training to work on that. How are you going to prepare for the season in terms of you making changes?
Yeah, so fortunately I have Larry, who is, I think the best in the business at the pitching coach aspect, and is really tapped into these guys and knows them so well. One of the things we'll do before every game is kind of have a meeting with myself, Josh Bard, Mike Harkey, and Roth, and we'll kind of we'll have a runway meeting where we'll really dive into the matchups that we want to have going into that game. So in a way, we'll kind of script it out of who's available, who's maybe down that day, and really highlight the matchups that we want to try to exploit. And then once we get into the game, now it's play, and obviously things come up that alter those plans. But we'll go in buttoned up, and then I'll lean on Larry a lot. We'll have some tough decisions to make, obviously, on a given night. But fortunately for us, we feel like we have a lot of good options down there. But I'll lean on Larry, especially in the early days, for his expertise, and he'll have a big piece in helping us make those decisions.
Hey, Booney, we appreciate the visit, the extended visit covering multiple innings here, and everybody's wishing you a lot of success. You don't need our good luck wishes because we know you're going to be great, and the Yankees are going to be a fun, competitive watch all year long. So thanks for the visit. We'll see you during the regular season.
Maybe just pull the hat down a little more.
I'll work on it. Hey, and I wish you guys the best. I know you guys are going to be great at this. I look forward to listening to you on a plane ride when we're leaving a city and watching Sunday Night Baseball. So best of luck to you guys.
Tell Nevin the pinstripes are very slimming.
Yeah, he hasn't found that out yet.
Aaron Boone joining us.
See you guys
here in spring training action. Yeah, the Yankee lineup permutation is something that's been discussed a lot in New York. Everybody has their opinion on what they should do with the three big power bats, who should lead off, who should play left, what do you do with your switch hitters? Is Gardner at the top of the lineup every day? Could you make a case for Judge leading off? Everybody has their 2 cents on that. Yeah, it is. It's really good water cooler talk. And a swing and a miss by Billy McKinney. Aaron Boone in his own words and pictures. Let's check in once again with Buster Olney, who's standing by with Byron Buxton. Buster.
Thanks, Matt. And Byron, we've been talking so much about your guys' play in the wild card game last year. What's your biggest memory from that game?
I think the biggest memory for me is just being able to get there for the first time in the big leagues. That's where you want to get. That's what you want to get. So, the atmosphere, the feeling that we had, the hunger that we had, the intensity of, just being up there to feel those types of vibes, that's the most memory I have from it.
How do you think you guys handled it?
Handled it very well. The turnout wasn't what we expected, but we went up there, we was ready, we was aggressive, we had a lot of fun, and we got that hunger back this year to get back to where we were and do a little bit more damage.
Now, you improved a lot at the plate last year. How important was last year for you in that regard?
It was big. I had all my teammates behind me to, keep me going throughout the tough start of the season, and I made a lot of adjustments. So like it says there, I was very unstable on my backside, so the first thing we worked on was me being a little bit more stable in my lower half. So I worked on a little bit more lower stability and got my legs up under me and figured out how to use my legs a little bit more. And that allowed for me to, lay off of those breaking pitches I usually swing in the dirt and allow me to stand there for an extra pitch or an extra bat to give myself that chance to get on base.
What difference did that make in you as a hitter?
It was huge. It turned my confidence and comfortability around in the batter's box, and I started getting back to being myself. The game started being fun again, and once it started getting fun again and you get back to being yourself, you realize the things that you know, you was worried about, it don't even worry you anymore. You just go out there and focus on what you can control, and that's what I did last year.
Now, the first time I ever heard anything about you was great makeup. And I hear that over and over and over again. Your teammates talk about what a great person you are. Where does that all come from?
Definitely come from my parents. You know, they brought me up the right way. Always told me, you know, school came first. I got very blessed with the talents that I had. So, you know, I was very, very into church and things like that. So definitely my parents, the way that I was brought up, the work ethic that they had. My dad gets up at 1 o'clock in the morning to go to work. My mom goes to school and with the kids. So, you know, it's just the little things in life that people kind of take for granted. You know, I'm very thankful and blessed that I was able to have the parents that I did to bring me up the way I am.
You are regarded as perhaps the preeminent center fielder in baseball now defensively. Who's a center fielder you like to watch?
When I was growing up, when I was small, I was a big Jim Edmonds fan, mainly because I saw the catch that he made over his head. And I just told my dad, like, man, I want to do that one day, you know? And he was like, you know what? If you want to do that one day, you're going to have to work at it. And it kind of went from there. I started watching Torrey, watched Ken Griffey, watched Ichiro. Most of the guys that, you know, once I made a transition to the outfield, I wanted to be just like Jim. Even though I was right-handed, I wanted to be just like him. So my dad was like, maybe you need to start looking at somebody that has the same glove side as you. So I started watching Torrey, and it was just something that helped me out throughout high school. You know, I watched it throughout high school to try to get the technique, see how good the jumps were, see the first step and things like that. And it's just something I kind of worked on throughout the rest of my career.
A lot of scouts like to talk about how they'd love to see a race between you and Billy Hamilton, some of the fastest guys. Who do you think's the fastest guy in baseball if I take you out of it?
Oh, that's tough. That's a lot of fast guys. But I don't know, man. I watch
Trey Turner.
I watch Billy. I watch D. I can't really pinpoint a guy. You know, all those guys run the bases well. And
is there kind of a competition among you guys, you think, in friendly competition?
Oh, most definitely. It's got to be. You know, being baseball players, you always want to be one of those guys. If you're a base stealer, you want to be classified as the fastest. So you know, every day I go out, yeah, we're good friends and things like that, but we also competing to see who gets the fastest time, who gets the third, you know, things like that. But that's what makes this game fun, you know, going out there every day, competing against those guys and just enjoying the game.
Byron, thanks.
Thank you.
Matt, back to you.
Buster, thanks. You know, there is a lot to like about Byron Buxton as a person, as a competitor, as a talent. Can I offer to you guys the thing I like the most about him as a player is Robbie Grossman sends a ball to the opposite field. Robinson in the corner, and the Sun making a tough catch. And advancing and heading to third is Eric Ibar. So with two gone, I'm going to tell you the one element of his game I like the most, Alex. He puts the ball in play. He made that a goal when he retooled his swing last year. And in this day and age of 3 true outcomes and launch angle, Byron Buxton is old school. Put the ball in play and get on base.
Well, he talked about Ichiro, and I know playing against Ichiro, boy, I wished he adapted the sabermetrics analytical way of hitting and strike out 150 times. But he didn't. Ichiro was a guy that put the ball in play. And for Byron and his speed, his most important statistics is put the ball in play and continue to put the pressure on the defense.
And Alex, you'll like this, not just put it in play, but his goal is to put the ball in play on the ground. Don't fall out of your chair. He wants to hit the ball on the ground. He does not want to hit the ball in the air, and that's something you just don't hear now. And one of his biggest things coming into last season was just being able to not just contact, but understanding his speed, understanding his assets, aren't so much launching and trying to get under it, but really putting it in play, using his feet, and that's how he's had success.
Logan Morrison batting with runners aboard and reacting as though he just broke a bat. Indeed. Well, the numbers bear all this out regarding Buxton. It was through July 3rd of last year that he had an OPS of only .531 on pitches in the strike zone. That was dead last in the majors. His strikeout rate was 25%, well above the league average. Then he changed the mechanics, the discussion, the adjustments that you mentioned, Jess. He was better with pitches in the zone. and better overall, striking out less. Morrison with a high infield pop. Handled by Wade, or handled by Torres to retire the side. Still 1-0 New York.
For the Red Sox, but maybe one of the X factors in this division, guys, going to be the Orioles. Tim Beckham with the 2-run home run. And Matty, you can kind of theme this year for Baltimore as a sense of urgency.
No doubt Baltimore trying to take advantage of what little time they may have left with Manny Machado, with Buck Showalter in the last year of a contract, Dan Duquette, and indeed they might be a wild card this year after the late adds they made to the staff.
And how about Tim Beckham? I mean, what he's been able to do and coming over to the O's, and we just saw a big hit there. It's just spring, but you think about guys when they switch teams and can kind of finally find a little bit more of their strengths, but keep an eye on those O's.
A lot of people think that Toronto Blue Jays could be a wild card there still, despite a lot of hand-wringing and questions about how long they're going to have Josh Donaldson. Will Aaron Sanchez be available for a full complement of 30 starts? But let's face it, the discussion in the AL East is back to the superpowers. It's back to the Red Sox and Yankees, two of the favorites, not just in the division, but in the American League. 2 balls and 2 strikes on the leadoff hitter Shane Robinson in a 1-0 Yankee lead here this afternoon. And the two finishing in almost lockstep atop the AL East last year. Yankees, of course, winning the wild card game. Red Sox, the division champs, and bowed out in the division series against the eventual world champion Houston Astros. And there's a base hit for Shane Robinson. Well, the two longtime rivals walking in lockstep this offseason as well, each importing a new manager. Alex Cora and Aaron Boone, with 0 previous managerial experience, each acquire a slugger after a long flirtation and dance. JD Martinez finally to the Red Sox, Giancarlo Stanton to the Yanks. And both rosters rounded out with veteran adds. Eduardo Nunez re-signed in Boston, and Brandon Drury and Neil Walker helping Aaron Boone's cause in New York. Leadoff hitter aboard. Here's Jace Peterson now. High fly ball into that Sunfield in right that's taking Jack Cave back to the wall. An adventurous route on a tough chance. And there's one gone.
This is where you've got wind, sun, the combination of everything. And we were here at this stadium with the Pirates and saw Polanco struggle in right field, but you see the glove usage to get it out of the sun and factoring in the wall. This is a tough catch to make for all those factors I just mentioned, but the fact that he was able to keep his eye on the ball. Again, we saw a few misses in right field yesterday. The same type of elements.
Yeah, Gregory Polanco became very familiar with the pediatric surgeon or the joint therapist who's advertised so generously on the outfield wall out there.
Did you just snort?
Yeah.
You got him to snort. That's
okay. I wasn't expecting Matt to be this funny. I mean, this is really good material.
Don't get used to it. I'm not that funny, and it's spring training. So Jacoby Ellsbury, the batter, with 1 out and 1 on.
Yeah, we got a show
right there.
Talk about the love that this is getting. Like Dr. David Eichton.
And for every good reason, though. If you need a hip and knee specialist, you're in the Fort Myers area, Dr. Dave's your guy. That breaking ball misses low. You know, we talk about the Yankees and Red Sox, you know, reasserting themselves atop the pack. It seemed like for a while the superpowers had been neutralized, but now the conversation is back to New York and Boston. If you're one of those teams, Alex, where does the biggest competition come from in the rest of the division? Is it Toronto? Is it Baltimore, as Jess suggests? Can Tampa find some magic after paring down payroll as much as they did?
It's interesting. Anytime you have Buck Showalter, you can never underestimate his team. He's as good as it gets from X's and O's, and really a great scout of. He gets more talent than any other manager, and then gets the most out of them. And then Toronto has proved they can win in the American League East. And again, if they get hot, and if you mentioned Aaron and Donaldson and all those guys staying healthy, they can be very dangerous as well.
It's amazing how it's discussed in New York, the fact that the World Series drought goes all the way back to 2009. These long-suffering Yankee fans that they haven't tasted a World Series in 7 long years. Don't talk to the people in Seattle or right, exactly. There are bigger sob stories elsewhere. And Phil Hughes, in his final inning of work, most likely, as we mentioned earlier, a part of that 2009 World Series team.
There is a buzz in New York City and excitement about this team that resembles the late 90s, Jessica. If you think about how excited and how loud that stadium, it reminded me of the old stadium.
Which you don't see as much. And you reference the new stadium and just kind of obviously a different team. And I mean, if you're going to talk about the late 90s Yankees, it probably doesn't get any better atmosphere-wise than those teams and what they brought. But you're right. I think there was also a drought of energy within the stadium, within the new one, and it got brought back, at least in the postseason last year.
Yeah, Carlos Beltran, Brian McCann, they were smiling after Game 5 of the ALCS, which the Astros lost, because they were saying, man, that was awesome. Like how great that crowd was at Yankee Stadium.
I know that it's no longer referred to as New Yankee Stadium. And yes, the energy is back. I agree with everything that you guys have said, but for a lot of long-suffering Yankee fans, as Ellsbury sends a fly ball into shallow right, and that's handled by Ibar. I still feel like it was a different duck at the old place. That ballpark used to move when it got loud. I mean, you saw the ghosts if you were in a visiting uniform. Spring training is in full swing. Games are available on MLB.tv. Select spring training matchups are live on your favorite supported devices. Blackout and other restrictions apply for regular season games. Visit MLB.tv for details. And that will be all for Phil Hughes this afternoon. Gave up the run on the Billy McKinney homer, and little else. Gone after 4 2/3 in this spring training affair. Pitching change, and we'll be right back. Under the bright lights of opening day, March 29th on ESPN. Pitching change for the Twins as the veteran left-hander Zach Duke takes over. And on his first offering to Ronald Torreyes, Shane Robinson is off to the races. So now dealing with a runner at second base and 2 gone in the 5th. Duke came aboard in that bullpen overhaul via free agency, a 1-year deal that can be worth almost $4 million with incentives. And Zach Duke, a veteran arm who came back off of Tommy John surgery in a almost ridiculous 9+ months to finish the season in the Cardinals bullpen last year. Yeah, really just 9+ months of rehab after that procedure. An all-star back in 2009. And again, part of a remade Twins bullpen that includes a number of free agent veteran additions. Addison Reed, who we are supposed to be seeing today at some point. Fernando Rodney, who will have the first chance to close. We talked to Paul Molitor about this group before the game, and he mentioned how guys like Ryan Presley, Trevor Hildenberger, Duffy, some of the incumbents might change roles for 2018, but they'll still be important members of this group.
And I really like the addition, and obviously there's a few, but Addison Reed, I think, is going to be that one that he might not start in that closing role, but I think he's going to be utilized in a lot of high pressure situations in late innings, might even close some games. But that's a big pickup.
A strike called to Torreyes. There was Addison Reed doing his best Bill Belichick with the cutoff hoodie. You know, the way the game has changed so much, especially the way it's played in the postseason, the emphasis on bullpen arms is hard to ignore. And a called strike 3 taken by Torreyes. Zach Duke lulling him to sleep to strand a base runner in the 5th, middle of the afternoon, in a 1-0 Yankee lead. For him, and he's standing by with Buster Olney.
And Phil, as we've established, you were teammates with Alex Rodriguez, and last night when I saw you, you said he's going to be so good working in the booth as an analyst, because you said he saw the game at the next level, and I asked you to give me an example.
Yeah, you know, he sees things that nobody else really sees in this game, and yeah, I think he's going to be great up there. I mean, you know, he could get guys that were tipping pitches that nobody else could see. So it's really going to be interesting to see how he kind of, if he tones that down up in the booth, or if he's going to share some of those things.
So give me an example of that, of how he would pick up something and then he would tell you guys in the dugout.
Yeah, even when I was pitching, he'd say, hey, this guy's got no chance on this, because he's, and I would take advantage of that all the time. I mean, he was such a resource to have. And he'd be like, hey, look, this guy's tipping this curveball right here. And people would be like, no, he's not. He's nothing. He's like, no, watch. When he comes down, flares his glove a little bit, and boom, he was right almost every single time.
Alex?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, look, Phil had one when he did the role that he did for us in 2009. His fastball played up as much as anyone. He was throwing up to 97. But Phil's one of those rare pitchers who can throw four-seam fastballs, throw 90% of them, and absolutely blow it by hitters. Hey, Phil, I know you've been working on your slider this spring, and you moved over to the first base side of the rubber.
Yep.
Can you tell us why you moved over to that side when you already have such great control?
Yeah, no, I was just trying to command my glove side fastball a little bit better, and I think it really came into play. So I got a couple strike threes there this game on fastballs down and away, and it just allows me to be more consistent on that side of the plate. And you know, as a right-handed hitter, if you've got a right-hander that's just consistently nailing that down and away spot, it makes it really difficult.
And how's that slider coming along? I know you started working on that this offseason.
Yeah, no, it's coming. You know, I asked you this morning if you'd, you know, give me your insight on how it looked today. But, you know, it's just one of those things I feel like with consistency and getting reps with it, it's going to just get a little bit better.
You guys done pumping each other up and telling us how great each other is?
I'm just trying to get some. I'm trying to get some hours on Air Rod over there. Just pumping him up a little bit.
Air Rod.
Well, and I've heard these stories. We're hearing them last night. How you used to be the guy who would take on Alex in the clubhouse and tease him.
I would a little bit, yeah, but he enjoys it. At least I think he does. But, yeah, no, we had a good time, and it showed on the field. I mean, that team had incredible chemistry, and you got to be able to do that during a long season like this, because, you know, otherwise you're going to get so sick of each other.
What about nicknames? I mean, you just threw out, what was it, Air Rod? You got any more?
Rod,
his nickname
Al,
is
Rod,
Coach.
The great one.
The
How
great one.
You name it, he's got it. Hey, Rod, when are we going to get on some Fortnite? Let's squad up, man.
Hey, I'm ready. I'm always good for a zombie game. Just don't leave me behind on the map.
Yeah, no, I'll carry you a little bit. We'll get some wins.
Can you explain that? Squad up.
Phil will do a much better job of explaining than I will.
I got you. You'll be good at it, just like that.
That sounds like video game talk.
I mean, zombies.
Yeah.
Squatting up.
I'm out.
You're out on social media, video games.
Hey,
So
Phil,
give me an example of something where you teased him in the clubhouse, got everybody going, because Alex said it would crack everybody up.
Oh, man, I mean, where do I even start? It's not that tough. Yeah, I mean, whether it was listening to Madonna in his headphones or you know, there wasn't any lack of material when it came to this guy. But you guys are going to enjoy him up in the booth, I have a feeling.
He's holding back, Buster.
Yeah.
I feel the whole
I
back.
have to.
Logan Morrison gave us more when he was out there on the field on first base, some stories about Alex. We were hoping for all the dirt
I could hear him. He was yelling over there. I thought he was trying to put on a pick play or something. Keep your voice down. Jeez.
You know, Phil, he would sometimes give me a ride home after the games, and we would ride to the game together. And after a while, he would say, "Can you please stop talking about baseball?" I mean,
as soon as he gets in the car, he just wants to talk about the game. I'm like, bro, let's leave it behind, you know? Like, you got a long ride down to Soho. I can't take this right now.
Ryan Lamar with a nice piece of opposite field hitting, if I may indulge in the cliche, and that loads the bases on 3 straight singles against Jordan Montgomery in the 5th.
Hey, Phil, thanks for doing this.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.
Good luck, Al.
Thank you, buddy.
Keep up, buddy.
Likewise.
Phil Hughes joining us this afternoon after a A nice spring training outing indeed, and as we talked about, Phil stretching himself out to perhaps rejoin the rotation or be ready wherever he's needed on opening day. So this gives us an opportunity, the dreaded catcher conversation, to jump into one of the hot topics of the winter, and that is the new league initiative that, in an attempt to expedite pace of play, is now limiting such conversations to 6 per side in a regulation 9-inning game. One of the changes for 2018, you cannot exceed 6 of those visits. You get 1 extra one on each side for extra innings, and the unused visits would carry over. So with the bases loaded, that's going to bring up Zach Granite. Let's go back to that graphic. Alex, what was your first thought when you heard of this discussion and that you heard it was going to be implemented?
I absolutely love it, Matt, and the reason why, it puts more emphasis on pitchers, catchers, and pitching coaches to have conversations when they should be had, you know, before the ball game, after the game. And I think when you come into the game, it's time to play baseball. It's not time to go over signs. You should have 2 or 3 different sets of signs. These guys are smart enough, they spend enough time to be able to have those discussions prior to the game.
Well, and then utilize the ones when you need it. I mean, they still get 6, so you're not eliminating it. So if you need to go out and have a conversation, you do it.
Granite with a soft liner into center field. Esteban Florial took over in the break for Jacoby Ellsbury. Makes the catch, then airmails the throw. It ends up not costing the Yankees, as there's 1 away here in the 5th.
But what it does do is it eliminates the kind of just, I'm going to come out to the mound, we got a bullpen guy warming up, so we're going to kind of delay things a little bit, or you know what, I just want to come out because we want to have a conversation right now. And that's the stuff you see a lot in the game, too much. And I think if you want to have a mound visit, it just needs to be, okay, this has to matter. This is an important time for me to go out and have a conversation with my pitcher.
And it promoted lazy behavior. I think now you have to be accountable for everything you do out there. What we want, we want the game to be crisp, to move forward. It's great that we don't have a time clock, but we do have a responsibility to move the game forward and keep the energy going.
Here's Ere Adrianza now with 1 out and the bases loaded. But let me ask you about some of the, I guess, some of the criticism that this particular rule has drawn from certain players. And I'll bring you right back, Alex, to Game 3 of the 2009 World Series. I believe you homered that night. And I believe that was the night that Andy Pettitte and Jorge Posada had about 6 dozen conversations during the course of a 9-inning World Series game. In the postseason, under big stakes, is this going to become a bigger issue? Because that's when it feels like more of this happens.
Look, can you make an extension in the playoffs and World Series and maybe extend it from 6 to 8? I certainly don't work for Major League Baseball, so I'm not going to suggest that. But there's something to think about because the ramifications are a lot larger and there's a lot more at stake. But it still promotes better behavior pre and post game, where if you're sitting with a guy for 5 hours before the game and I don't know what sign I want to use at 9:30 at night in the 7th inning, that's our problem, and that should be fixed.
Is there any component of sign stealing that requires more than 6 visits to change signs? Is that a part of this pushback that the players are giving?
Absolutely, but again, if we play, we're together for 200 days, 200 games in 232.
A soft liner the other way for Cave, rather. And a run will come in to score as Robinson makes the catch. Garver scores to tie it up at 1 apiece.
Hey, man, if you and I are teammates, Jessica, if we're teammates, and I'm going to say, hey, you're my number 1 starter, you're my number 2 starter.
That's right.
First sign, second sign, and you go to the mass third sign. If we feel that there's anyone out there looking at our signs, I'm just going to go right here, which means third sign. Boom, boom, curveball. I feel again someone stealing. I go to the first sign. Boom, 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 curveball. It's that simple. And people just want to be, they just want to rely that anytime there's confusion, they're going to go have a 3-minute conversation.
And there's, to anything, there's loopholes too. I mean, we're going to see, I think, players if need be. You know, there was, I think, if there's an injury or if you're going to see a guy that needs to stretch, and maybe there's a time when they can now be able to kind of converse in a certain area. You know, a pitcher that's maybe covering first base can have a conversation that lingers a little bit longer before he goes back.
Fly ball into center field will put a bow tie on this conversation for the time being, but I'm sure it's going to have an opportunity to resurface a little bit later on. A 1-1 tie at the end of 5. Twins camp earlier this week, and it was something that nobody saw coming when Jorge Polanco was suspended for 80 games after a positive test for PEDs. He did not appeal. He will begin serving the suspension on March 29th, opening day. He was scheduled to be returning the incumbent shortstop for the Twins, and in fact was such an important hitter for them that he batted cleanup down the stretch in 2017. New pitcher for the Twins here to start the sixth rather, and it is the veteran right-hander Fernando Rodney, who will be the closer on opening day in Minnesota. You know, back to that story at shortstop with Polanco, and we talked to Paul Molitor about it. Polanco addressed his teammates. They have options at shortstop, first of which is likely to be Eduardo Escobar. But Alex, this is something you can speak to personally, and I know that a lot of folks have been interested in your take on this situation.
Yeah, Matt, you know, it's an awful time for Polanco. It's embarrassing. I can speak about this from personal experience. You know, I know that when I made my mistakes, one of the big keys was to take 100% responsibility and be accountable and stop pointing fingers at this one or that one. And that really worked for me. I think Polanco has a great opportunity here. I mean, if you think about moving it forward, he now gets to build bridges with management, his teammates, the fans, and ultimately himself. And, you know, when you move forward, one thing I could tell him is build a board of advisors around you, people that have a moral compass that you respect, so you make better, sound choices.
You know, when Starling Marte was served with his suspension last year, the discussion you heard so often was how he quote unquote let his teammates down. And I know that this was something Polanco took to heart, and that's why he made the decision to address his teammates. And by the way, according to everybody that was in the room when that happened, he has their full support.
I think it starts with accountability and taking responsibility and addressing people that you love, both in the clubhouse and outside the clubhouse. That includes friends, family. I know for me, it was my mother, it was my daughters. And having really tough, uncomfortable situations, because I made a mistake and I have to be able to dig myself out of this hole through honesty. And I think Polanco is off to a very good start, and speaking to his team was a great thing, and he's got a great response.
How hard is that to get to the point where you have to be accountable and you have to be able to look the people that you love and care about and tell them something that's hard for them to hear?
You know, just for me, it took me a while. I chose to go pointing fingers first, and you know, hired a bunch of people, and ultimately it's not their problem, it's my problem. I was the quarterback. I was making decisions both during and then after, and hopefully Polanco obviously is not going to go down that road, and no one should. But you know, the other thing, Jessica, when I came back, I wanted to make sure that I had a different attitude and I was a different person, and I wanted to have gratitude and appreciation to be one of 750 and one of 25 to play for the New York Yankees, and wear one of the greatest uniforms in all of sports.
You know, the conversation now for the Twins is, what do we do for 80 games without a guy who was being counted on? There's a jam shot off the bat of Brandon Drury. Escobar makes the catch almost on cue, makes the play. That is, he's going to be the guy, according to Paul Molitor, that at least gets the lean in playing time. They're carrying right now 3 shortstops here in camp, each of whom have a chance to break camp with the big league team. They're batting 1, 2, and 3 in the lineup today, perhaps not coincidentally. Adrianza, the veteran, Ibar, who's an all-star a few years ago, and Escobar, who's likely to get most of the opportunities.
I remember what Escobar did coming in from Miguel Sano. That was a huge bat that they had lost, and when he was injured in the back half of the season last year, and Escobar came in, and really they didn't skip a beat. I mean, he came in and is explosive at bat, and this is a guy that I think even with Sano being healthy, when Polanco comes back, Dozier's at second, but he can play any of those 3 positions, and you're going to see Escobar getting a lot more playing time.
Yeah, we're going to visit with Paul Molitor coming up shortly. We can ask him about what's going to happen at shortstop. We can ask him about what's going to happen at closer. As we mentioned, so far, it's at least according to the dialogue coming out of Minnesota, it's going to be Fernando Rodney, but there are options with the aforementioned Addison Reed and others that could close. They're going to be an interesting team to watch this year in a AL Central that has a vanguard team. That's the Cleveland Indians, and then some clubs that are rebuilding. A lot of folks think it's a 2-horse race in the Central as it might be in the East. It's a shot into the corner off the bat of Tyler Austin, the second hit of the afternoon.
You know, Matt, going back to the shortstop dilemma or asset for Paul Molitor, I think it gives him a great deal of flexibility. And when you're a shortstop, just like you're a center fielder, you're the quarterback. You're like a point guard out there. And shortstops can play all over the place, and I think that'll be the case for Molitor and his roster.
Two-out double off the bat of Tyler Austin brings up Austin Romine now with a chance to knock in a run.
Tyler Austin is a guy that I expect to get a lot of playing time this year in New York. I know he just got demoted, but he's a guy that crushes left-handed pitching, and he has for a long time.
It's a pop off the bag at first for Max Stassi, who just came in place of Logan Morrison, and he runs out of room.
Tyler's a guy that hits the ball to right center field, Jessica, like a left-handed power hitter, and he's really matured a lot, and he's been one of the guys that's going to be affected by the acquisition of Giancarlo Stanton. He's a guy that was expected to be here, and now he has to go back to AAA, and you know, I know as a young player, that's very difficult.
Well, and Neil Walker, I think that was one that really hurt him, and I think he had a real chance of being brought up to the bigs otherwise, but because they brought up Neil Walker, and obviously Austin very versatile on a lot of things that he could do, but I think Walker is the one that filled that role.
Yeah, you have to feel for a guy like Tyler Austin, who's been knocking on the door the past couple of years, and last year was just a series of bad luck health issues, starting in spring training when he broke his foot, and a hamstring problem slowed him down in June. There's a shot back up the middle. And they're going to wave Austin around to score. The Yankees have taken a 2-1 lead here in the 6th.
What a nice, easy swing for Austin Romine. And we talked about Tyler Austin, the previous at bat, and his ability to be able to go right center. But look at where this pitch is located, and watch the simplicity of the swing. Fastball up and away, and just literally takes his hands, his back knee and his hands just go to this pitch. He knows there's a runner at second base. He just needs to get it to the grass to score that run.
Two-out RBI single gives the Yankees a 1-run lead once more, and now it's Billy McKinney who delivered the first run of the game with a 2-out home run back in the 2nd.
Romine came in tremendous shape this spring and is having a world-class spring training.
High infield pop and a challenge for Adrianza, who hangs in there to make the catch and retire the side. You know, last year the Minnesota Twins became the first team in Major League history to lose 100+ games the previous year and then qualify for the postseason. From last in the AL Central to 2016 to a wild card appearance the following year. They lost that wild card game against the Yankees, as we've talked about. Paul Molitor, for his part in the turnaround, was named 2017 American League Manager of the Year. And the Twins aren't going to sneak up on anybody this season. among the teams that have beefed up over the winter. And it's nice to have Paul Molitor with us on the telecast today. Paul, thanks for the time. We've been talking a lot about some of the positions of interest on your club, shortstop and closer. Give us your thoughts as we stand on this day here in spring.
Well, welcome to Fort Myers, guys. Yeah, you know, I think with Polanco's situation, you know, I've been fortunate, especially the last couple of years, to have Escobar as a guy who could come in and play well. And I think he's going to deserve the shot to get most of the time there at short. Adrianza, another versatile player who helped us a lot last year, will be protection for me. And then at the back end of the bullpen, you know, having Fernando Rodney come over, you know, he's been good. I think he's still strong. I'm kind of amazed at how he still has that life in the arm after a lot of years in the game. But, you know, we've had some competition for that spot here the last few years. We can kind of lock that down now. But knowing that I have some more depth as far as leading up to that, it's going to be important too. But that's where those two slots stand for me right now.
Well, part of that depth is also the addition of Addison Reed. I think we might get a look at him next inning. But how does he kind of add to that bullpen? You mentioned Rodney, but even Reed, will he get some looks in the possibility in the closer role as well?
Well, it's nice to have someone that who has done that as a part of your bullpen. Whether it's a situation where, you know, your closer needs a blow or whatever, you have an experienced arm who has pitched the 9th inning. You know, when I talked to Addison this winter about potentially coming here, he's all about wanting the baseball in the biggest spots that are going to bridge us to the end of the game, and he's more than content with that. He's not, you know, obsessive or anything about trying to be the guy who gets the last outs of the game. But I know he can do that. You know, just watching him this spring, he's just one of those guys that gives an uncomfortable at bat to everybody that he faces. But it's a nice, another experienced arm for us out there.
Hey, Paul, I know that we spoke a little bit this morning. 21 years in the major leagues. This is your 4th year as a manager. I know you were kind enough when I was a young 20-year-old at the Kingdom for the Seattle Mariners. Sure. I asked for 10 minutes. You gave me 45. And in that 45 minutes, you taught me some great lessons about hitting, especially staying short inside the baseball, not trying to do too much. If I'm a young hitter, Sano, Brian Dozier, I must be in heaven. Are you tempted to go out and work with the hitters like you did with me?
Well, first of all, I think there was a point where the pupil passed the teacher in that particular equation. But, you know, it's fun for me to do hitting. I had a chance to coach it 1 year in Seattle. But, you know, I trust my guy in James Rowson. I do, you know, try to get down to the cage and watch. And, you know, every once in a while we'll chip in a little bit if I have some ideas. But, you know, it's one of those things where these guys ask questions, they want to learn, they want to get better, and we're all here to provide a resource.
Hey, Paul, it's interesting. Today is the anniversary. It was 8 years ago today that Joe Mauer signed his 8-year contract to stay in his hometown of the Twin Cities. As a guy who knows what it's like to play for the hometown uniform, is there a way you can put into words how important Joe is to your lineup moving forward this year?
Well, you know, this is the journey that he took through the high school and grade schools in St. Paul to be a #1 pick and play for his hometown team. You know, obviously when he signed that contract, he had already put together a tremendous resume. And in my mind, he's lived up to it. I think some of the production has gone down at times, but he's still been the guy around the clubhouse to provide leadership. He still takes the best at-bats on my team day in and day out. And, you know, the future's kind of up in the air as far as which way that's going to go, but he's not the kind of guy to worry about that. He's a nice guy for me to be able to pencil in there every day for sure.
Paul, we appreciate the visit today. Best of luck in 2018.
See you guys along the way. Thanks, man.
Paul.
All right, you bet.
AL Manager of the Year, Hall of Famer Paul Molitor joining us. Boy, these spring training games are fun when we get to talk to guys during the game.
Right.
Huh?
What a treat.
We could get Logan Morrison mic'd up during a regular season game. We'd be in business. Max Stassi took over for Morrison last half inning.
I'll tell you what, him literally taking your advice to take a huge hack his first at bat, first pitch, and he did it so much that he knocked the earpiece out of his ear.
I don't know that I want everybody to do that. I think we appreciate his doing that, but I don't know that Paul Molitor would have been totally jacked to hear that he did that, but we had fun with it.
It's a spring game.
Yeah,
we wouldn't do that in the regular season.
Sure.
You should start miking mascots.
Yeah, I don't know what that
talk.
would yield. a lot of pregnant pauses.
A lot of random noises.
Well, here it was earlier. On request, Logan Morrison.
I tried, guys. Told me to swing hard.
He did. I love him.
3-2 pitch to Max Stassi, misses outside for ball 4. Hey, we were talking about Joe Mauer today being the 8-year anniversary of his re-extending to stay in Minnesota. First overall pick, as Paul mentioned, in 2001. Big league debut a few years later. 3 batting titles coming over a 4-year period. MVP in 2009. And a career batting average still, all these years later, over 300. One of the greats, and a guy who's on the franchise Mount Rushmore in Minnesota.
Staggering discipline.
Yeah.
And command of the strike zone, and just embodies everything that's right about the game of baseball. Tremendous person, great leader, quiet. One of my favorites.
Well, he too, it wasn't just Byron Buxton and Brian Dozier that led that late surge last year, because Mauer was every bit responsible for all the runs and all the big numbers that they posted in August and September of last year. From the beginning of August on, Mauer hit 350 down the stretch, and that was over a period of time when only the Cubs outscored the Twins in all of baseball. It's a fly ball that'll wrap up the side in the last of the 6th. On to the 7th in Fort Myers in a 2-1 Yankee lead.
During the course of this offseason, which team had the best offseason? We sent this poll out last Friday. The options, 8 options: Angels, Astros, Cubs, Giants, Phillies, Boston adding J.D. Martinez, the Twins, and the Yankees. And the team that went going away, as you would expect, because they're a big market team, the Yankees adding Giancarlo Stanton. With last I checked, guys, is it still over 40%? Because it's too bright down here, I can't see the monitor. 38% for the Yankees in the poll question.
It's a fly ball out to center field, and the first out in the books for Addison Reed, who takes over on the mound here in the 7th. I'm curious what you guys think. What team had the best offseason, Jess?
You know, I know it wasn't the big sexy names, but I think the Minnesota Twins. I mean, I love the people that they went and got for the amount of money. I mean, you think about obviously the arms of Lance Lynn, Jake Odorizzi. We talked about the bullpen and Fernando Rodney and Addison Reed, amongst others. Getting the bat of Logan Morrison. I mean, there's a huge list of people that they went to get in a team that I feel like didn't have a ton of holes. I know they didn't get the one big, huge name and contract, but I think over time we've learned that sometimes that one big person doesn't necessarily get the results.
Yeah, lots always said about the team that quote unquote wins the off season, rarely going on to win the World Series or even get there. But I would agree with you. I think the Twins did a magnificent job. And Buster, you've written about this, how cost efficient the additions that the Twins made this winter have been.
Think about it. They added 8 players. The trade of Jake Odorizzi, the signing of Lance Lynn, the signing of Logan Morrison, Addison Reed, Fernando Rodney, all of that for a total of $60 million. So they had this great young core of players, and they've dropped in all of these guys on 1- and 2-year contracts, and they have drawn raves from other front offices talking about how well they've done in taking advantage of this slow market and how many players they added for very little money. Guys, this is a team that doesn't owe a penny to any player after 2018.
That's crazy.
Amazing. And I know that, having spoken with Paul Molitor specifically about Lance Lynn, he is thrilled that all the factors, the market, the availability, the budget, brought Lynn to the Twin Cities. In fact, Molitor was telling us about a conversation he had recently with Tony La Russa, which made him an even bigger fan of what Lance Lynn will be able to bring the Twins this year.
And they talked about the unselfishness, and you hear that thrown around, and Paul Molitor was the first to even bring it up. A lot of people talk about, hey, you're a team player, you're going to do it. Everyone can say that, but how Lance Lynn, no matter who he spoke to, La Russa, didn't matter. Everyone had the same exact definition, and the moment that Lynn stepped into the clubhouse was very much, hey, however you want to utilize me, and the numbers back it. Not just result numbers, but innings, the amount of effort when he is healthy. I mean, he's a guy that goes out and gives you the amount of innings and time that you just don't see from starting pitchers as much anymore.
Guy who's long past his Tommy John days and who will be anchoring what they hope to be an improved rotation.
I talked to him yesterday, guys, and he had other options. He could have gone to another team for more years and more money, but he looked at his options and thought, you know what, I want to go to a place where I have a chance to win.
What a fine catch in center field. Zach Granite laying out and robbing Jace Peterson of what looked like certain extra bases.
Two things here. It's the jump and obviously the superhero move at the back end, but you see immediately off the bat, Granite just sees this ball so well, and it's on a line in the gap, and he immediately takes the right angle and gets the jump right there on the back end, the superhero move to be able to catch that. But it starts with that first step. For a lot of outfielders, you love the end result and how that looks, but you don't get there without the jump that he's able to get.
2 gone now, and Estevan Florial makes his first plate appearance of the game. That's worth another look.
Well, right off the bat, watch Granite. First step, him being able to get to his left, and again, the angle with the wind. We've seen outfielders struggle to be able to get on the right path. He does that. You also see, you've seen outfielders, the trail, where it looks like a big, huge, long, almost like a curveball, because that's how long their route can be to get it. And then they might have a diving play at the back end, but for Granite, it was both. Straight, direct line, and the nice put on your cape, make the dive.
And Florial sends a ball to the opposite field. This a little easier chance for Ryan Lamar, who makes the catch to retire the side in order behind the reliever Addison Reed. 7th inning stretch, still a 1-run lead for New York. Is standing by with special guest Coley Harvey.
That's right, Matt. Coley Harvey's done a great job covering the Yankees this spring for ESPN, ESPN.com. So, Coley, when spring training began, we had a day at Yankee camp in which Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton took batting practice together, and Aaron Judge's timing was way off. He's coming back from shoulder surgery. How much progress has he made during camp with that?
Wow, Buster, he's made a ton of progress. I mean, you're talking about a guy who just last night hit 2 home runs. This is just the second Yankee that's done that this spring. Miguel Andujar, who of course is not with the big league club, he did that earlier this spring. But it's interesting because I talked to Judge earlier in the camp, and I said, hey, when did you feel 100%? When did that happen for you? And he said, I wasn't 100%. He said that he was slowly building himself up to get to opening day to make sure that he felt that way at that point. He certainly looks at it at this point. We also had a conversation a couple weeks ago about what he wants to do at the plate this year, and he mentioned hunting mistakes. He wanted to make sure that he hunted those mistake pitches and hit those well this season. That, he said, was the key to his success there in September when he got on that hot streak last year. So we'll see if he gets a chance to do that this season.
Now, we won't know how Giancarlo Stanton adapts to New York until he's played a while. I know from talking with some of the writers in Miami who covered him, they wonder, when he was with the Marlins, he might go for 5 with 4 strikeouts, and he wouldn't necessarily come out and talk about it. In New York, you have to come out and talk about it. How do you think he's going to do?
That's good. That's a good question. I think that remains to be seen. I think there may be some moments where we might not hear from Giancarlo in that sense. He may kind of stick to his guns in that regard. But he did say just yesterday in Tampa that, look, I know that, I'm in New York. I know that the expectations are a little different. I know that the good and the bad, you got to answer to it all. So the fact that he knows it at least, we'll see if he does answer. But again, I think that's one of those things that remains to be seen. I'd like to see that happen before we go too far with that.
Now, the Yankees are expected to score a lot of runs and have a great bullpen. If there is a questions about the rotation, how do you think that's coming together?
So far, so good. We'll see as we move forward the rest of this week. Of course, Jordan Montgomery pitching today. He's going to be the 5th starter for them. And Luis Severino has been, he will get the nod on opening day for the Yankees in Toronto. And he has been really the workhorse of this staff to this point. He's pitched very strongly all spring in his 2 starts. And then also in some sim games that we've seen him pitch in there. CC Sabathia, obviously the rock of this rotation. The key is going to really be getting Masahiro Tanaka going. He's had a little bit of an up and down spring, mostly down. Of course, we've seen that in past years with him as well, but he's peaked at the right time, pitched so well in the postseason last year. The Yankees, of course, want to make sure they see that again this year.
Now, the Yankees have superstar prospects in Gleyber Torres and Miguel Andujar. And Andujar had a great camp, was named best rookie in camp. They signed Neil Walker, the veteran, one-year, $4 million deal. They traded for Brandon Drury, and yet the guy who's emerged at second base is Tyler Wade. Why?
Why? Wow. Well, the big reason why is because he has some of these baseball intangibles that people in this game talk about a lot. He's got this ability to take the next base. He's got this baseball instinct that really has gone a long way for Aaron Boone. That's one of the reasons why Boone has leaned on him so much. It's not even just on the base pass where he's got this sense of taking the extra base, of having that extra baseball intellect. He's shown off his speed and his range in the field as well. We've seen him have some dramatic diving catches, a couple of sliding catches that he's had, and that's been part of the reason why he's emerged. I did talk to Tyler a couple of weeks ago about why he felt like he was performing well in what was a competition at second base at that point. It's not going to be that as we move forward. It'll be him and Neil Walker in a platoon situation. But he said it was being consistent, just making sure that each and every day you're getting those opportunities to perform, and when you do get those chances, that you perform well. And he certainly has done that this camp. He's taken the extra base, like I said. He's had a couple of extra base hits, and he's been very smart on the base pass as a base runner.
Well, bookended on this, Aaron Judge is developing into the type of star that only a Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez knows about. The fishbowl that you'll live in. How do you think he's handling that? He's very early in that process.
So far, so well. So far, so good. And I think he's going to continue to be that way because of who he is inside here. He's one of the most down-to-earth, humble, quality people that I've encountered. I know you can attest to that too, Buster. But I've been around a lot of athletes, not just baseball players, but other sports, and Aaron certainly ranks right there. And I think it goes to his upbringing, and it goes to him remembering some of the down moments. He even mentioned the other day that, hey, I think about the fact that at this point last year, this thing wasn't settled as far as him being the starting right fielder. The fact that he can still remember those humbling moments, I think that's going to pay big dividends for him as he continues to move forward in his career.
Coley, great job this spring. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Buster.
Back to you.
See you guys.
Guys, thanks. More conversation about the Yankees and the rest of the league on the Baseball Tonight podcast with Buster only weekdays. Listen on the ESPN app or on Apple Podcasts.
You were on the podcast today.
I was on the podcast today, yeah.
Is that your rookie appearance? Did he grill you too much?
Maiden voyage on the podcast.
How'd it go? Was he hard on you?
No, Buster flipped me some low-hanging fruit. It was softball central for a guy like me, and it was a lot of fun. Again, weekdays on ESPN.
I appreciate that, Matt. Now, you do have to tell the story of your first cuss word because it's baseball related at some point.
Oh, here we go.
That is a story that needs to be told nationally.
Yeah, maybe I'll keep that in my pocket for the first time we do an A's game. Are they on the schedule?
No.
It's a ground ball to first.
You're lucky.
You're lucky. 1-2-3 inning by Domingo Germán spares me the indignity of going through that on national television. Still 2-1 Yankees. A change on the mound here on a sunshiny day in Fort Myers as Ryan Presley takes over, the 5th Minnesota pitcher to work in this one this afternoon. 2-1 Yankees as we start the 8th. And Abiatal Avellino leads things off for New York. Presley in 57 appearances last year, amassing an ERA just south of 5. Four-seam fastball specialist who was a Rule 5 selection by the Twins off Boston's roster back in 2012. He's been in Minneapolis ever since. You know, we were having the discussion last half inning with Buster regarding the heavy-hitting middle of the Yankees lineup with Giancarlo Stanton, with Aaron Judge, with Gary Sanchez. And Buster made the point, Alex, that very few can identify with what Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge are trying to do as Yankees. You're one of those people talking about all the variables. New York, in the case of Stanton, changing teams. In the case of Judge, expectations on a young superstar.
And there's a lot there, Matt. If you think about routines, that was very routine oriented. I got to the stadium every day around 2:30. went in the training room, did my weight room, did my stuff. The one thing I never had to deal with in Seattle or Texas was dealing with the media. All of a sudden, you had to put the media and media request as part of your routine, and sometimes you allocate 30, 45 minutes. That is a lot of energy when you multiply that number by 200 games in 232 days.
So how do you think Aaron Judge handled it in his first full season? I mean, all the reports, all the feedback was nothing but positive.
Much like Jeter, Pettit, and Mariano, when you're basically born and raised as a New York Yankee, that's the only thing you know. Again, I think it's much more difficult when you come from secondary and tertiary markets to be able to adjust.
Avellino with a drive into the left center field gap that's off the wall. And he ain't slowing down around second. Into third with a leadoff triple.
Speaking of tertiary, there's a triple.
Second baseman Tyler Wade.
Look at the speed just right out the gate. This ball looked like it was going to be out of here about 3 feet lower, but he right out of the box knew immediately, I'm getting on my horse. I'm taking third. There was no doubt this was a triple in his mind. This is a hard triple to get left center. Usually you see the right side of the field.
Jessica, that's how you ran at Stanford, and that's how I slid my entire career.
Sliding wasn't your strength?
No, it wasn't.
Kid up from minor league camp to play a game on national TV. There's no chance he's stopping at second base, by the way. Infield's in for the Twins. And now it's Tyler Wade with a chance to drive in a run here in the 8th.
You know, Matt, the other thing about Stanton going back to 28, and I can relate with this because I was 28 as well when I came over from Texas. You know, I think is a big assumption that he's going to be able to go from playing 150 games last year or so in right field to play 100 as a DH, 25 in left field, 25 in right field. That should not be overlooked, and we should keep an eye on that, especially early on.
Well, changing positions, markets, cities, leagues, all of those things, and coming off the monster season he had, and for Stanton, his most productive, walking hand in hand with his healthiest. Never before had he played a full complement of games at a high level like he did last season. And the MVP honors were certainly well deserved in the National League last year.
Alex, what advice would you give Stanton in terms of dealing with the media, dropping into that situation after not having dealt with a media contingent as large, and what impact did it have on you?
This is the irony of me giving media advice to anyone in New York, but I guess I learned the hard way, Buster, and I tell you, after my suspension, I had so much of a different approach, and I think it goes back to that appreciation and grateful to be one of 750 and one of 25 for the Yankees. But I would think, you know, get ahead of things, completely lead with honesty and be genuine. I would say lean into it. I think the biggest mistake, you know, Big G can make is what I did, which is I just folded up into a corner and thought less was more, and to a degree it is. But I think leaning in, telling your story, controlling the narrative a little bit will be your best friend versus trying to hide from it. And I think the biggest mistake you can do if you go 0 for 4 or you're in a streak of 1 for 12 is to go hide in the training room. I know Big G would never do that, and he should. No one should do that, especially in New York City.
And Wade chums on a pitch in the dirt to strike out. That leaves a man at third with 1 gone. Well, I mean, this kind of puts into perspective what we've discussed in terms of how few people have done what Giancarlo Stanton is doing. Reigning MVPs to change teams that offseason. Bonds in '92, Alex, you in 2003, and Stanton this past winter.
Alex, I think you're right about the DH thing as well. I've talked to so many players through the years, veteran guys who will tell you, I hate to DH. I hate being in that role. And they don't think it's a minor adjustment because instead of being distracted, for lack of a better word, out in the field in between plate appearances, you have that 45 minutes between at bats, and that can gnaw on you.
It's exactly right. And again, it should not be overlooked when you think about the major differences between not only markets but weather. Miami, the weather's 90, 95 degrees in April and May. You're going to have very cool weather in New York and the Upper East. And not only that, you compound it by you can't stay warm by playing right field. You have to stay in DH. You hit every 45 minutes. I know that being a DH my last couple of years, it is a completely different routine. And again, it'll be very interesting to see how that transpires.
Brandon Drury fouls off a pitch to fall behind a ball and 2 strikes. Well, another element of this historically, not only MVPs changing teams, the last time a team featured the 2 top home run hitters from the previous season in the same lineup was 1966 when Mays and McCovey opened the year with the Giants. It just doesn't happen that often. And we haven't even talked about Gary Sanchez in this discussion yet, who might be the best of the 3.
I feel like he's going to be the MVP. I think he's going to sneak up on so many teams. And this is crazy to even think, because this was the leader of the baby boomers. This was the guy that got way more attention last spring. We're talking 1 year ago, 12 months. They got more attention than Aaron Judge. And I just feel like the talent and everything that he has, and not to take anything away from Stanton, Judge, and so many other players in that lineup, but I feel like Sanchez is going to have a heck of a year.
Well, Matt, and to your point, the guy we've spoken about the least, the guy that may be the most affected. And what I mean by that is Gary Sanchez, for me, is the best hitter on that team. And he's blocked. The only way he gets his 600 at-bats is you have to go out and catch 130 in 40 games. And is that something the Yankees want to do with Gary Sanchez? Because prior to having Stanton, DH was a beautiful thing. It was a rotating, and it gave Aaron Boone a lot of flexibility, which he does not have today.
Drury with a fly ball out to very shallow center. Granite makes the catch, and that too keeps Avellino at third base. So with 2 out, apparently there are some bad feelings in Grapefruit League action today. John Brickley has an update with the details. John?
Matty, I know it's only spring training, but don't tell that to the Tigers and the Phillies. Matthew Boyd throwing over the head of Odubel Herrera. Next pitch gets hit. Boyd gets tossed. An early call to the showers. He's laughing it off. Ron Garnhire coming to his defense. It's March, Matty. I love the feistiness.
Tell those guys it doesn't mean anything here on March 22nd. My goodness. Okay. Here's Tyler Austin now. Austin's had a nice afternoon. A couple of base hits for him. A single back in the 4th. He doubled and scored the go-ahead run in the 6th.
I am interested in going back to that conversation, though, of how much the DH is utilized will also depend on how much production they get from the outfield in Jacoby Ellsbury and Aaron Hicks, and how much they're going to be able to need Stanton playing in the outfield, Aaron Judge, because if they don't have other hitters, they're going to have to be out there.
Hey, while we have a moment, a reminder that Play Ball is MLB's initiative to inspire all forms of baseball and softball participation, making opportunities to play available for fun and for everyone. To learn more, go to playball.org. Brief conversation on the mound with Ryan Presley, who is apparently okay to continue here, and trying to strand that leadoff triple with 2 gone against Tyler Austin. So Presley back to work out of the stretch with the runner at third. 2 balls and a strike. We are scheduled to see after Presley a 23-year-old lefty Gabriel Moya, who I quite frankly am curious to watch work. Breaking ball misses, and that's a pitch that Presley doesn't throw very often. Moya is a changeup specialist and a guy that's got some big strikeout numbers. His September call up last year. Looks like we may or may not be seeing him in the 9th inning today. And there's ball 4 to Austin.
Catcher Austin Roman.
Unless Gabriel Moya switched numbers and bodies, that's not him. You love when they bring a guy up from minor league camp and spring him on you at the last minute.
Makes your job fun.
Oh, it's a blast, I'll tell you.
Alex, what was the first spring training number you had?
Boy, great question. You know, Buster, it was always 3, because when I signed in 1993, first round pick, I came up and they gave me 3 and I stayed with it all the way through.
I mean, when you're a first round pick, you pretty much have you got choices at that point.
No 98 for you.
It was the same number I wore in high school because one of my favorite players was Dale Murphy.
Really? You wore 3 for Dale Murphy?
Yep.
By the way, how is he off the ballot for the Hall of Fame as quickly as he is? Guy wins back-to-back MVP awards and doesn't get consideration. That guy should be in Cooperstown for my money.
I agree, and he was one of the first Ironman who played 162 games, and I just thought that was terrific.
Did you ever have to barter for a number when you changed uniforms? Because you did it a couple times. Did you ever have to buy it back?
Nope. I was fortunate enough that when I came to New York, obviously number 3 was taken, but 13, Dan Marino was my favorite player in football, being a Miami guy.
Mm-hmm.
And Texas, it was wide open when I got there.
Okay. And I think of that because Phil Hughes, who we saw pitch today, had to do some bartering for his number. In fact, he gave it up in 2009 when A.J. Burnett went to the Yankees. Phil handed him his number. That was it. A little hot shot from Max Stassi, who makes the play. And yes, that leadoff triple is left stranded in the 8th. When there's Sweet 16 matchups, Alex joins the show to preview these loaded Yankees. And Marty Smith has an exclusive interview with Tiger Woods. Sports Center 6 Eastern on ESPN and the ESPN app. It'll be a second inning of work for Domingo Germán, who goes to work against Taylor Featherston to lead things off in the home half of the 8th in a 2-1 Yankee lead. Germán worked quickly and efficiently, getting the Twins in order 1-2-3 like in the 7th. .14 outings last season with the Scranton Wilkes-Barre club. As Featherston bounces one up the middle. Oh! He'll spring yip by Avellino, puts a leadoff hitter aboard. You know, throughout this telecast, we've been talking about some of the questions and some of the issues that the Twins have dealt with this spring, including the Polanco suspension, what they're going to do at closer, what they're going to do at shortstop. I guess the elephant in the room, if you will, is what they're going to do as far as that big power hitter spot. Miguel Sano's status, Buster, still unclear regarding opening day.
That's right. Back in December, Betsy Bisson, a freelance photographer in this area, generated a post on Twitter in which she wrote that Sano assaulted her in 2015. Major League Baseball has been investigating this. Sano was interviewed last month. A resolution is expected soon. Baseball's domestic policy, domestic violence policy was put in place in 2016, and there have been 4 players suspended under that.
Yeah, other than that, there is very little information. The Twins, of course, are hopeful that Sano will be cleared of the accusation. There is no pending criminal charge, by the way, and they'd like to have their meat of their order available on opening day in March. Counts 0-1 on Eric Ibar. Ibar, of course, one of the 3 shortstops. We've talked about this, that vies for time in the spring at that position when opening day arrives in the absence of Jorge Polanco.
So, Matt, you kind of go through the 3 and their strength. Ibar, clearly the veteran, the one with experience, you know, understands the position, the versatility, what it takes. Adrianza, more the glove. You know, he's known a lot for his defense. Escobar, the offense, and his versatility as well. They have a lot of different options between those 3.
Yeah, Ibar, the insurance policy of the 3. Featherston runs, and on a pitch it gets away at the plate. Runner at second now with nobody out in the 8th.
And Ibar brings winning experience to the mix. He played with the Angels. Mike Scioscia called him his best player for a really long time. And there's a lot of things he can do to help you win. He bunts, he can hit and run. You saw a hit and run an attempt right there. I think Molic is going to be very happy to have this type of option in his roster.
Two balls and 2 strikes to count to Eric Ibar. Well, none of this, the runner at second with nobody out, can be traced back to Domingo Germán. Again, he was quick and efficient in the 7th, lost Featherston to the error, and then the ball in the dirt advanced him. Former Marlins property, Domingo Germán, signed as a 17-year-old back in 2009 and then was traded to the Yankees in the Nate Eovaldi trade a few years later. That trade was in exchange for Martin Prado and David Phelps, who we learned yesterday, the former Yankee right-hander, will miss the entire 2018 season. Tommy John surgery, part of a long, troubling list of injuries in Seattle camp. That's a situation that just hasn't changed from last year. They have had some of the worst injury luck in baseball the past couple of seasons. Ibar lifts a fly ball to right. Tough center field, you bet. 1 away.
And guys, we talk about the strikeout or the lack of strikeout, but there's a perfect example that gets overlooked. 2-1 ball game. These are the kind of games you play in October. Something we take for granted is the ability to make contact of a guy who's in the mound, who's a strikeout pitcher, and is paid to miss barrels. There's your guy on third, brings the infield in, and perhaps we get a tie game because you made great contact.
So the tying run at third with less than 2 out, and an opportunity now for Gregorio Petit, making his first plate appearance today.
So I'm sensing you're not a fan of the strikeouts that we're seeing more and more in baseball, especially that go along with the home runs, and kind of an acceptance that if you have some production, especially power production, it's okay to strike out a significant amount of times.
Look, I was a master of a strikeout. I struck out about 130 times a year, but it is very important, especially in situations like this, to be able to put the ball in play. And if you think about the last 3 World Series, 2 of them, the Kansas City Royals in 15 and last year's team, were the best 2 teams in contact. There's a correlation there. As a defender, if you have a team that never puts the ball in play, boy, it's like a walk in the park.
Well, the Astros the year prior, so last year the contact team that you're mentioning, the year prior were leading the majors in strikeouts. So for them to make that evolution, to be like, we can't strike out, we can strike out, but we can't be one of the leaders in striking out and have success in the postseason. And they made that adjustment and cut those down. Which is, you're right, I think a lot of why their offense had so much more success. All the athleticism and talent that they have, they didn't need to rely on just all or nothing swings.
Here's Robbie Grossman now trying to pick up that runner at third. Ibar flies out. Gregorio Petit grounds out. And the tying run at third with 2 away now. 1-1. And should Grossman keep the line moving, it'll be Brock Stassi next, who I have incorrectly identified as his brother Max throughout the telecast today. In our discussion of the Houston Astros, brother Max has permeated my subconscious among the Stassi brothers. So my apologies to Brock and to Max and to mom and dad and to you, America.
Glad you got that out of the way.
Yeah, I feel better.
Best prospect in baseball. He was just sent to the minor leagues by the Braves, but he will not be there long. He probably only go for about a month. Miguel Cabrera looks tremendous again. The Astros look like they're poised to try to become the first team since those Yankee teams to go back-to-back. Aaron Sanchez looks like he's back. He solved his blister issue. And how about Noah Syndergaard this spring? Absolutely dominant. Talk to scouts who say that in those first exhibitions when he was throwing 99, 100, they didn't think he was overthrowing at all. They thought that's just where he is in his career.
How about, has Mike Trout struck out yet?
I mean, I didn't check that this morning, but it's a stat I've been watching. I think he had, as of yesterday, 38 plate appearances and no strikeouts. And if you know Trout, this is someone who is hyper competitive.
Yeah.
He's always trying to get better. Just a few weeks ago, I visited him down in Millville, and he was talking about his approach at the plate in dealing with high fastballs. He's obsessed with getting better, and that's a number I want to watch this year because he and I talked about Joey Votto and how Joey Votto reduces strikeouts by a dramatic amount. Anthony Rizzo did the same thing. You guys are talking about the high strikeouts, a lot of home runs. You want to get paid in baseball now? Have a good walk to strikeout ratio. Only 5 guys in baseball last year had walk strikeout ratios of 1-1 or better.
When on the other end of it, if you're a reliever that's going to come into a ball game in the late innings, like Gabriel Moya is here, you'd like that strikeout equation to be in your favor. And just watching Moya here, and I've been looking forward to this outing for most of the day, you can see why he's such a tough assignment. Left-handed, great stuff, terrific changeup, and about as funky and herky-jerky, Alex, as they come.
This is the last guy you want to go out there and face with all that type of movement. As a hitter, you want predictability, and you want to be able to have a repeatable swing, or you also want a repeatable motion from the pitcher.
Well, he is channeling a lot of different things in that delivery, too. He's part Mike Fetters. He's part Dennis Reyes. I mean, he would be a tough one to pick up in shadows. Heck, in ideal conditions, I think he'd be a challenge.
See all those different trigger points as a hitter when you think it's not just about triggering your swing, but it's about getting into your load, about getting into your rhythm, getting into that right slot position as a hitter. It's all based on that timing, and he's not consistent with it. He changes it up. We've seen other pitchers do it. I think the most difficult part is you talked about you want as a hitter to see a repeat delivery, but as a pitcher, usually the reason you repeat your delivery is to have consistency, to be able to command pitches. It's not easy to do what he does and then throw strikes every single time.
And for me, I was a leg kick guy, Jessica. So for me, anything with this type of herky-jerky would really disrupt my timing. And that's why he has a nasty changeup. And then when he throws that fastball on 90 or 91, it really acts and plays up to about 95 or 96.
Would you ever just kind of minimize? I mean, I know you never like eliminated the leg kick, but just kind of minimize it, especially on a guy like this where you can't depend on.
Yeah, that's a great question, and the answer is yes, I would, and I would do it with 2 kind of pitchers. One like this is more herky-jerky, that's really trying to disrupt your timing. The other one, a guy like Syndergaard, who's going out there and throwing 101, and you just don't have the time to get your leg up and get it down.
Well, not only you don't have the time, you don't need it. You don't need that extra power, really, because he's already providing it.
Right.
Still a ball and 2 strikes to Shane Robinson, who has singled in 2 of his 3 plate appearances this afternoon.
I bet Booney could imitate Moya, though. I mean, we talked about him imitating you, Alex, as a hitter. He can do pitchers, too, and I bet he's getting a good look right now.
He's probably working on it mentally.
And Alex, you're talking about the leg kick. It's always what I've thought distinguished Miguel Cabrera, who I talked about. He's having a great spring. He looks great. His ability to make adjustments with his hands and his feet, I thought it really separated from a lot of hitters of your generation.
Cabrera is, along with Manny Ramirez, probably the best 2 right-handed hitters I've ever seen and played with and against and all of that. And
into left for Lamar. And 2 gone for Moya.
Designated hitter Jace Peterson.
They're still making those, I guess.
At the flea market, Matt.
Vintage.
He gone.
2 gone for Jace Peterson now.
Hey, Buster, talking about Cabrera, I mean, he is one of the guys that he is such a large man. I mean, I'm 6'3" and I played around 230 pounds. I got to first base. He looked like my big brother, but he is the combination of power and finesse. I mean, here's a guy that in the weight room bench presses over 400 pounds and yet has the hands of a Roger Federer at the plate. It is so impressive to watch.
And I remember talking to J.D. Martinez after he went over to Detroit, and he talked about how Miguel would be in a hitter's meeting, and he would be there because the best hitter on the team, but everybody knew he wasn't really listening because he knew. Because he had such great instincts and such a great understanding of how to make adjustments.
And a true savant at the batter's box, a student of the game, watches videos, is incredibly focused with his routine. I can go on and on about Miguel, but do not underestimate how much this guy cares about hitting and winning baseball.
A ball and 2 strikes to Jace Peterson, batting with 2 out and the base is empty, and a swing and a miss sends us to the bottom of the 9th after a perfect inning by Moya.
I see you, Moya.
Yeah. Next week.
Oh, Kershaw Mad Bum, sign me up.
Just roll up your sleeves and get right
Some
into
shadows, West Coast style.
That's right. Day game.
Chavez Ravine.
The whole thing. Here's Brock Stassi to lead things off in the last of the 9th for the Twins.
Yeah, the great Sarah Langs, who does great research for us, pointed out to me this morning that Kershaw has allowed 4 homers to pitchers in his career, 2 by Madison Bumgarner. And Kershaw is aware of that.
Oh, and
No
so is
question.
Mad Bum.
It's a ground ball to the shifted infield, and there is one away to start the last of the 9th. Hey, I was wondering what happened to Jay Buhner all these years. He's a Yankee fan apparently now, Alex.
Jay Buhner.
Jay, who started with the Yankees prior to going to the Mariners.
That's right.
He was fun to watch.
He's a great guy and a tremendous leader.
Was that the Ken Phelps trade? Buhner for Phelps. Buhner for Phelps.
Yep.
Seinfeld fans recall that.
I believe that's accurate.
Here's Bobby Wilson, who took over at catcher around the midway point this afternoon. First pitch from Herman is in for a strike. You come to a spring training game, sometimes you get Johnny Holstaff, 6, 7 guys because people need work. Occasionally you'll get a grapefruit or cactus league game like this one, where it was Jordan Montgomery for 6, and it appears Domingo Herman the rest of the way.
And he's been impressive. Fastball, curveball, changeup. He's had hitters off balance. And his fastball is just exploding up there, making a nice impression.
And the Twins are down to their final chance with 2 away now here in the last of the 9th.
And he works quick too. And that's something I think seeing more and more. Obviously you want that pace of play. It's such a buzzword right now, but even just for, I feel like, the confidence of a pitcher. I know as a hitter, when you see a pitcher just getting in there and working quick, it just exudes confidence that they're ready to go.
You're right, Jess, and playing defense behind a guy like this with this type of pace, it makes it really easy. And a lot of times teams play much better defense because they're more alert with this type of pace.
Here's Jake Cave with 2 gone and nobody aboard in the last of the 9th. He has singled here this afternoon. One of the 6 hits for the Twins against the combination of Montgomery and Herman. Jake Cave on the other end of this matchup for the first time. He was drafted by the Yankees in 2011 and just acquired by the Twins a little over a week ago. The 0-2 and a swing and a miss, and that'll do it this afternoon. A well-pitched affair as Aaron Boone just sat back and watched Jordan Montgomery for 6, Domingo Germán for the final 3. A run in the second, an RBI shot in the 6th was good enough for the Yankees.